to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Krista. I'm an international mama of two, a dental hygienist turned midwifery student. And here on my channel, I talk about all things motherhood, midwifery, pregnancy, and childbirth education. So if these things are of interest to you, please follow along and get ready to birth and bloom. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Krista. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to Birth and Bloom. So today on the channel, I'm going to be talking about the stages of labor. And this is a really important one because especially if you're a first-time mom, you don't know what to expect. Labor is notorious for being a marathon. It can be a very long process. And I think it's important to familiarize yourself with the stages of labor, what you're experiencing, what's to come, and that way you have a better understanding of what is normal, what stage you think you're at before you officially either go to the hospital or your birth center or your midwife comes to you. So I hope that this is a helpful video to you, and I hope you can have a little bit of a better understanding of the 3 stages of labor and what goes on in each stage of labor. So to start, labor is going to be different from person to person, from pregnancy to pregnancy. I have had 2 births. My first birth was in the hospital at 37 weeks and 4 days. It was a medically indicated medical induction. So that was not a normal labor, meaning it was started with medications and it got going because of the use of induction methods, and it did not go to the normal stages that a natural labor would progress. Whereas my second birth, I had a completely unmedicated birth. I waited for labor to initiate itself spontaneously, and that experience was what I needed to, one, become a childbirth educator, but also in my path to becoming a midwife, because I will say it is something waiting for labor to start. I had not experienced that before, and it can be really challenging mentally to wait for this labor to initiate, to wait for it to begin. And if you're anything like me, you could have some kind of false labors, if you will, where you think this is it, and then contractions peter out. You think this is it again, and then not so much, until like the real deal. So I hope this video can help kind of help you better understand what you can expect. And yeah, let's see. What is labor? Labor is the whole process of that cervical effacement and dilation to make way for the baby to come down through your uterus, through your cervix, through your birth canal, and to be born into the world. So there are 3 stages of labor. Stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Stage 1 of labor, let me get my poster. Stage 1 of labor is the process of your cervix dilating. So here, I'll hold up my poster. Our cervix is closed during our pregnancy, and as pregnancy ends and as birth is more near, your cervix may start to efface and dilate. So the first stage of labor is that whole dilation process. Okay, so not to confuse you, but within that first stage of labor is early labor, active labor, and transition. But those 3 phases make up the first stage of labor. Okay, so for the first stage of labor, there are the 3 phases: early labor, active labor, and transition. So early labor can generally last from 6 to 12 hours in first-time moms. You could probably cut that time in half for a subsequent birth for the second-time mom, and so on. And active labor can be between 4 and 8 hours. So let's break this down a little bit. What the heck is the difference between early labor and active labor? So early labor is generally when contractions are starting to come. They're not coming that frequently yet, They're pretty mild, but you're noticing them. This is great. Your body is starting to do what it needs to do. During early labor, that's when most of the effacement of your cervix is happening, meaning that's the thinning process, and then it's the start of the dilation process. So in early labor, you'll probably notice some cramping sensations. It may feel similar to a period cramps, if you will. But as your early labor is moving, it will start to come into more of a pattern, meaning you may have some contractions every 15 minutes, and then every 12 minutes, and then every 10 minutes, and then every 16 minutes. Early labor contractions can be a bit more sporadic. They're not really going to be in a super defined pattern yet, but it's totally fine. Your body is starting to recognize what it needs to do. Your cervix is starting to make changes, and early labor is lovely. Early labor is a period where you're going to feel really excited. You know that labor is starting. This is happening. You're going to meet your baby soon. But I want to remind you that early labor can be long, and it can be very long in first-time births. So what many midwives and doctors and nurses will recommend is rest, rest, rest. Get as much rest in as you can. If it's the middle of the day and you're not tired, totally fine. But I would recommend taking a warm bath or shower, making sure you're consuming a lot of amazing nutrients and foods that are going to be sustaining your body for this long labor process, making sure that you're well hydrated, getting in your electrolytes. So drinking things like coconut water can be super hydrating. Different electrolyte packets are amazing. These are all things that are going to help fuel your body at a cellular level. Make sure that you have enough hydration in your system, because if this is not true labor, sometimes you can experience some prodromal labor or some Braxton Hicks contractions that are a bit more painful. But if you're not adequately hydrated, those cramping and early contraction sensations can feel more painful. And they really can peter out if it's not true labor, if you're not properly hydrated. So that being said, many times, if you think that this is it, if you think it's showtime, if you drink a lot of water and get in a warm shower and contractions don't fizzle out, this is most likely the real deal. So that's really exciting. But in early labor, you want to rest, you want to relax, you want your husband or partner to just dote on you and let you do your thing, whether that is, going on a nice walk, mentally preparing, resting in bed, taking a bath, eating good food, enjoying some time with your other children. Early labor is an opportunity for you to kind of ignore the contractions the best you can until they demand your attention. Once early labor has made its way to active labor contractions are going to demand your attention. They are going to make you focus, turn inward, and work through these contraction sensations. So that is generally when you will notice that the contractions are not just super easy. You can't really talk through them anymore. You can't really ignore them anymore. Once that transition has happened into active labor, you're like, oh, okay, this is getting a little harder. Things are feeling more intense. Contractions are getting closer. Contractions are getting longer. That's usually a good indication that, things could probably be kind of leveling up into active labor. So to backtrack just a second, the amount of centimeters that you're dilated is not concrete, okay? But in general terms, early labor is going to be from closed, or you can even have that dilation happen before you're in labor. But for the purposes of this, let's say closed cervix to about 4 centimeters dilated. So we're looking about this width here, okay? So don't be discouraged that early labor isn't doing a lot, because it is. It's thinning that cervix and it's starting to open the cervix, okay? But there are some women, especially in their first time births, where they feel like the work has been so hard, your early labor has been kind of dragging on, and you feel discouraged that you think it's time to go to the hospital, and maybe your doctor or a nurse checks you and they're like, oh, you're only 2 centimeters, sorry, it's time to go home and come back when things are a bit more intense. You know, so do not get discouraged if you feel like early labor contractions are harder than you're expecting them to be. Every labor is different. That does not mean that your contractions are not painful like you're experiencing them. So just be kind with yourself and don't let the amount of centimeters that you are discourage you in your labor, because cervical dilation can happen really rapidly in certain cases. For myself personally, for both of my births, my cervix opened very quickly, but in my second birth in particular, I got to the birth center and I was about 4 or 5 centimeters. And then within an hour, my water broke. So that was a general indication that I was probably about 8 or 9 centimeters. I immediately went into transition and my baby was born like 40 minutes later. So the dilation process happened very rapidly, not like a centimeter per hour like the old school way of thinking used to be. Okay, so early labor is going to be generally 0 to 4 centimeters. Okay, so let's talk more about active labor. Active labor, like we talked about, is going to feel more intense. This is when you're going to start to use a lot of your coping techniques that you probably practice. Some counter pressure is good, really good movement, utilizing gravity, changing positions, taking advantage of a warm shower or bath. Using a rebozo like we talked about in a previous video, where you can kind of rest your belly and your either your doula or your husband or your midwife can kind of jiggle your tummy and help relieve some of that contraction sensation as well. I talked about in a previous video different coping techniques that don't include medication options. So if you're planning a natural birth, I encourage you to go back to that video and learn all about the different techniques that you can use to cope with the labor contraction pains. Okay, so you are going to turn inward generally around this time. Your contractions are going to be about every 4-ish minutes. There's a 4-1-1 rule or a 5-1-1 rule, depending on who you talk to. So essentially what that means is your contractions are now in a real pattern. They're coming about every 4 or 5 minutes. The contraction itself is lasting a minute long, and this has been going on for at least an hour. So generally this is a good time to notify your midwife if you're having a home birth. Call your midwife if you're having a freestanding birth center birth. Or call the hospital and let them know what's going on, that you think you're in active labor, and they may encourage you to head to the hospital to come in and get checked to kind of see where you're at, okay? So that's the 4-1-1 rule, or in some cases the 5-1-1 rule. So these are the contractions that are really making changes to your cervix. We are now talking about getting you essentially from 4 centimeters of dilation to about 8 centimeters of dilation. So that is a big change. We're getting really close there. And active labor can last about 4 to 8 hours. Once again, depending if this is a second time mom, that could be essentially half the time or less. So it really varies from person to person. Labor and birth is not concrete. Nothing is always, nothing is never. So just like life, you know, we have to accept things for what they are. Trust your body, trust your baby, and your body's going to be talking to you. So this is why I'm such a advocate for natural birth. This is not a dig at anyone that chooses to have a more medicalized birth, but our bodies and our babies are communicating to us throughout our whole labor, and that communication is really important. Okay, so from active labor, where you're really working from it, you don't want to be talking during contractions, you need to be tuned in, you're working through them, and they're going to feel more challenging. This is where we really want to protect our space, whether it's home or the hospital. Having the lights really dimly lit is helpful. Low voices, less interruptions. So as minimal interruptions as possible, the better, because you will be in labor land Labor land is essential for a normal, natural birth to take place, for you to be in the zone, allow your body to do what it needs to do, utilize that movement, minimal interruptions, minimal vaginal exams, minimal everything, okay? So this is why it's important just to consider where you're giving birth once again. So let's just, regardless of where that is, do not forget that birth works best when there's just minimal interruptions, where you feel like you have privacy and just, do your thing. So that is just always important to remember there. Okay, so that is active labor. From active labor, you're done, right? No, we're not done. Active labor then moves into transition. And transition is something I think a lot of people aren't prepared for, especially if you're having an unmedicated birth, because generally during transition is the point where you've done all of this hard work for hours and hours, right? Transition is the point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do it. If you're having a home birth, people are like, get me to the hospital. I want an epidural. I'm over it. I can't do it. Like a lot of self-doubt starts to creep in where you're just like over it. You don't think you can do it anymore. Sometimes during transition, some people experience some shaking, which is totally normal. You may experience some vomiting. There's a surge of endorphins and chemicals going through your body called catecholamines, where essentially your body's starting to shake to wake up baby and say, hey, guess what? You're about to be born. Let's start to wake up. And some like adrenaline's going. And once again, birth is incredible. Like that design is amazing because it's alerting baby to kind of wake up, get prepared. It's showtime. You're about to be born. And that's going to help them be more alert during the birth process. So if you have vomiting during transition, if you are shaking during transition, if you feel self-doubt during transition, this is normal and this is, it's a really good thing. And your practitioner or your doula will be like, yes, like she's getting so close because they know during transition, all of these things happen and that you're so close to meeting your baby. So transition is going to be from 8 centimeters, 9 to 10. So this is when you are complete. Okay, so 10 centimeters is when there's no detected cervix anymore. The whole cervix has opened and moved out of the way, and that is gonna give room for the baby's head to travel down through past the cervix and through the vagina and to be born. Okay, so that is early labor, active labor, and transition. These phases all make up the first stage of labor. Okay, so what happens next? We've done all the dilation. You've gone through all of the challenges of labor. But guess what? It's almost time to meet your baby. This is amazing. This is very, very exciting, okay? So the second stage of labor is the pushing stage. So this is when you are going to be pushing with your body, working with your body to meet your baby. So stage 1 was that dilation, and stage 2 is when baby is going to be coming. So the pushing stage itself varies widely. Some people push once and baby's born. Other people can push for up to 3 hours. And it can be more taxing. So it really is dependent on, is this your first birth? Is this your third birth? And there's a really wide range of normal. If you are having an unmedicated birth, you choose the position you want to give birth in. You will intuitively know what feels right to you. In my second birth, I had a water birth and I was kind of on my knees, leaning forward on the edge of the tub. And that was what felt right to me. I was kind of holding on to my husband, bracing myself. And to be honest, my pushing stage, the second stage, was very quick. My daughter was emerging very rapidly and I kind of didn't even notice or realize I was about to give birth until my body started pushing for me, which is called the fetal ejection reflex, which, is intense. I didn't know I was going to experience that, but my body did a lot of the hard work for me and she was born within a few pushes. And for my first daughter, I also had a fast pushing phase, which I feel really fortunate about. My second stage of labor with my first daughter was 13 minutes. It was really quick also. So that was amazing. So it varies from person to person. If you're giving birth in the hospital, if this is your first baby, do not be surprised if your nurses are encouraging you to do some practice pushes, meaning you're complete and they tell you you can start pushing. They're going to kind of be watching to see if baby's making their way down, and then if they're noticing that there's some good changes happening, they'll alert the doctor or midwife, and they'll come in to catch the baby. Okay, and in a physiologic natural birth, you may not even have a I'm so sorry. You may not even have a vaginal exam before you start pushing, because many midwives that work in the home setting, they can see with that transition period, and there are some guttural sounds that mom is gonna make when it is time to start pushing. This is without doing any internal exams at all. They trust mom's intuition, they trust mom's groove, they know that baby is coming, and in most cases, a vaginal exam is not even necessary. So my second birth, I didn't have a check at all after that very first one. So when it was time to come pushing, my body just led the way and my baby was born within a few minutes, like I said. So this is exciting. You're gonna push your baby out, you're gonna meet your baby, and what you have done all that hard work, your labor, and your 9-10 months of pregnancy has all led up to, this is the moment you're gonna meet your baby, and it is so incredible and so exciting. Congratulations, you're a freaking rock star, you did it, and enjoy that insane boost of oxytocin that is exploding between you and your baby. That is the incredible love hormone, and it is just a magical, incredible moment. So congratulations. Okay, so let's talk about the third stage of labor. In my video last week where I talked all about the placenta, we discussed the third stage of labor. So the third stage of labor is the birth of your placenta. When your baby is born, it's so important to be so excited and feel all the good vibes and feel the amazing hormones that are surging through your body. We want to preserve and protect that oxytocin flow, because oxytocin is what's going to signal to your body, baby is born, the job is not finished, we still have to birth the placenta. The oxytocin surging through your body is going to continue to contract your uterus, and those contractions are going to kind of clamp the uterus down, and that's what's going to allow the placenta to detach from the uterine wall in order to be born. So though the birth of your baby is what you've been waiting for, and it's so amazing and exciting, it is important to remember that we are not done after the birth of the baby. We must deliver the placenta, and after the placenta is born, you are done. You are done. Amazing. This is so exciting. Okay, so but the placenta birth is still very important. We want to make sure that the placenta detaches normally from the uterine lining and can be born, and that you don't have any excess bleeding, that there's no pieces of the placenta that are retained inside of the uterus. And if all is well, you are done. This is amazing. Okay, so those are the 3 stages of labor. To recap, stage 1 is the dilation stage. You will have early labor, active labor, and transition, where we are dilating and effacing from essentially closed to at least 10 centimeters of dilation. Stage 2 is going to be the birth of your baby, the moment we've all waited for. And stage 3 is going to be the birth of your placenta. Once all these stages have been completed, congratulations, you're a parent, you're a mother, and you've done such an incredible job. Labor and birth are hard, but you're a freaking rock star and you can do hard things. Go into your labor and birth experience prepared and educated and be willing to go with the flow to a certain extent, realize that all of us learn from our birth experiences in different ways. I truly believe that we have the birth experiences that are intended for us, that you will learn lessons and your baby is brought into the world based on just divine alignment. And I want you to just be so proud of yourself, no matter how your labor and birth go. You are exactly who this baby needs to be their mother, and this is just such an incredible, amazing time. So kudos to you, congratulations. You are gonna be an amazing mom. All right, guys, so I think that's it for us today. I hope this was a helpful video to you. Please make sure to subscribe and share and like if you're not already doing so. And please hop over to Instagram where you can find me. My handle is birth and bloom, birth_and_bloom_. And that's where I share updates about my YouTube videos, share wriggles, and yeah, that's about it. So once again, have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.